Alright, cool. This is my third time recording this, so hopefully I can get through this within close to 5 minutes. Jeez, oh my goodness. Alright, so I have a black hole effect. If you want to turn that off, just come up here, you go false. Cool, false turns it off. Alright, cool. Part 1, or part 2. So we're just rendering a texture, and then I'm modifying the texture with a distort. So the distort function is here. If we go into the distort function, it's doing what we did in class. Up here, I have another texture initialization that only takes in a UV and then adds an animator, which I think makes sense. And then if you want to have a locate, like you could do like times 2.0 here to give that sort of local effect. And I could pass in another variable. I think it's just a little cleaner this way, but I didn't implement it for this specific function. So then the distort function basically is just adding a cos, adding the cos of x to, with the addition of time to get it to move. So it's doing that in the adding that to the y. So if you think about the cos of x is just outputting a y value between 1 and -1. So if you know that, then you can just sort of apply it to, you can just by adding that to the y vector, you can morph the effect to get this kind of wavy effect. So that was what I did. I thought it was cool. Not super interesting. If you have the modifier, you can. Oh wait, that's the 3D. So if it's 10, it makes big wavy, and if it's 100, it makes small wavy. 50 look nice. Okay. I've said that 3 times. I'm moving at a pace now. All right, cool. So that's pretty much all of part 2. So we'll move on to part 3, which is just adding lighting. So not a whole lot of complicated stuff there. I don't think there was anything super complicated there. Yeah, all I did is just took the shading, putting it into functions, and just used it for this, and I mapped it to the mouse position. So not a whole lot there. Just keep moving. Onto the cube map. So what I did for the cube map is I created a mouse point in space. So it takes in that mouse vector, multiplies it by the resolution inverse, and then it multiplies it by 2 and subtracts 1 to put it into that NDC scale, so that the center of the screen is 0, 0. It just makes it a little bit better of a viewing experience, in my opinion. So then I take theta, I make a theta variable, and all that is the mouse point times 2 times pi to let you view the entire thing. And then I have 2 rotation axis functions, and then they take in the theta for y and then the theta for x. And basically what those do, I remembered from 3D math a bit about rotation vectors, so I was able to implement that by taking the cos and the sine of theta and then putting it into a 3-dimensional matrix. You can return, and then multiplying that against the, where is it? Multiplying that by the vector, you can rotate in the x and then also in the y direction. So I just remember that from 3D math, and I also did some research about 3D rotation matrices, and then was just able to implement it. So then I create the cube. That's that. Yeah, that's that. Cool. Now on to the interesting part. Man, I am making crazy time. Actually, I'm not. It's almost 5 minutes. Cool, the wormhole. Awesome. So this took a little bit of extra research. Ever since the first day of class, I thought it was an awesome effect and definitely wanted to learn how to do it. So that's what I spent some extra time doing. So there's a bit of some funky stuff here. because I have that wormhole boolean at the top, because there's some funky interactions with the circles and the point lights. And it just sort of simplified it a little bit and made it nice and easy to work on the wormhole. So basically what I have going on is, if the circle exists, it just returns black, not super complicated. But if it's outside the circle, then what it does is it renders this black hole effect. So the reference I used was this Godot form. So and this sort of code I was able to adapt into ShaderToy. It was well documented, so I was able to basically extract the information I needed. And I basically am using this function here, the gravitational attraction function, to create this effect. And basically, what the gravitational attraction function is you have a point or a planet, right? You have a point and or 2 points. Ideally, or like in the classical sense of the function, they're both planets. And in this case, because we're using pixels and we're using light or photons, so we're using the planet or the black hole, and then we have a point in space that we're modifying. So into the actual code now, I've got the point, or this should probably be like pixel or something, which is related to the radius. So this actually just sort of sizes out the black hole effect. So if I increase this, it will increase the radius of the effect. And then we have the difference. So this is almost like the other point. So if this is the these are actually more like the mass. The p and then the difference is kind of like the mass of the are the two mass objects. So if I multiply this by 2, it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Oh, because it's not the normalized diff. This is just get the difference vector. But I'll explain that in a second. Anyway, this is like mass 1, this is like mass 2 in the classical sense of the function. Then we have the distance between them. So I'm just taking that difference vector and then squaring it, so I don't have to use the length function. And then we do the normalized diff using the inverted square root function, or the inverse square root. Cool. So then what we have, okay, so then we have this function, right? So if this is mass 1 and I increase the mass of mass 1, the normal diff, then we see the size increases. Now if I do the same thing with the pixel or the point or the photon, whatever you want to call it, or mass 2, if I do the same thing there, the image doesn't change. Because you can think here too, if this is 1 and this is 1, and I multiply this one by 2 or that one by 2, it's not going to affect the overall output of the function. And if I multiply it by 2, or if it's going to be bigger than if I had not multiplied them by any number at all. So if these were just 1, it'd be smaller than if I multiply either by 2. Okay, so it all makes sense. And then also, if I multiply this distance, if I increase the distance between the two, it gets smaller because we're increasing if we increase the distance, then you have less attraction. So the principles of the gravitational attraction are applying here, which is cool. And then we're just adding that to the UV. So depending on how immense the attraction is, we're just getting a value related to that. So that's pretty much what we're doing. Then I'm just creating the texture, and bing bash boom, there it is. So I spent like 5 minutes on this, but this was super interesting. This was sort of like a connection to physics class, which was super cool. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this, so cool. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.